There is a looming shutdown in all 47 county governments in the next 2 days if the National Treasury fails to disburse 102 billion Kenya shillings owed to the devolved units. A threat made by the Council of Governors on the 14th of June, where they warned that the delay in disbursements will grind operations to a halt and consequently affect service delivery amidst a pandemic. But this would not be the first time the country is treated to a stalemate between the national government and the devolved units over funds. On this episode of the Front Row, we ask, why has this become a perennial problem? What will be the impact of a shutdown in the counties if it happens? And what are the options for counties as Kenya grapples with a financial crisis? I will be speaking to two governors and a financial expert. Thank you for joining us to be part of this conversation. Be sure to join us on the hashtag The Front Row at Akisa Wandera at KTN News KE. Our text line is also open 22155. We'll be taking a look at your thoughts, comments, questions to our panelists as we continue. And remember, on our Twitter poll question, we are also asking, do you support governors in their call to shut down operations in counties due to lack of funds? Do you support governors in their call to shut down operations in counties due to lack of funds? Be sure to tweet us at Akisa Wandera at KTN News KE with the hashtag The Front Row, and I'd be glad to take a look at a number of your responses as we continue. Let's take a look at who are our panelists on this hour of the Front Row. Dr. Abraham Rugo Mureo is a country manager, international budget partnerships. He's been a consultant on devolution, public finance management, and participatory governance. Dr. Rugo previously worked as a public sector consultant at the Institute of Economic Affairs. And glad to have you joining us here. We also have Governor James Ongwae, who's the current governor of Kisii County. He's an economist and public policy expert, having studied economics, public policy and administration. He's also an experienced public service leadership and governance, and of course also the current vice chairperson of the Council of Governors. And finally, we have Ndiritu Mureithi, who's the governor of Laikipia County. He's a seasoned economist and financial markets expert and also experienced in leadership and management. Governor Mureithi is also an accomplished practitioner in the African financial markets. The three gentlemen will be helping us break down some of the issues as pertaining funds at the county governments, but also the stalemate currently being witnessed between these devolved units and the National Treasury. But first, last week, the National Treasury said it would disburse 39 billion shillings to clear April and part of March pending bills to the county governments within a few days in an attempt to avert the looming shutdown of the devolved units. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani, who at the time was appearing before the Senate Finance and Budget Committee, attributed the delays to revenue performance. On this same day last week, governors threatened to shut down the counties over delayed disbursements. Let's revisit this story before we get back to the conversation.
And the Council of Governors were up in arms.
If the National Treasury fails to release the required funds, counties will not be able to offer basic services, thereby forcing suspension of services or a total shutdown.
And it seems their threats had attracted the attention of National Treasury CS Ukur Yatani.
And we intend to clear all the pending balances for the month of March and before that, but we will also be disbursing the disbursement for April. Therefore, we'll be remaining with May and June. But we also want to struggle and clear significantly the amount for disbursement for May.
Yatani was put to task over frequent delays of disbursement of funds.
You are not balancing your disbursements, national government compared to the county governments. Because if we can go 3, 4, 5 months without disbursement, it means that the counties come to a halt.
As to why we are lagging behind in terms of disbursement is a challenge of revenue performance as a result of slowed economic activities.
Problems of raising national revenue cannot be shared equally by counties. And if a share of national revenue has already been approved by Parliament, Article 219 contemplates that at the end of that financial year, that money should be sent without any deduction. It's an exception.
And this is not only unique to the counties. We have challenges also disbursing to the MDAs, and we are really falling behind.
The CS had previously sought Parliament's approval to temporarily stop funds to county governments that have consistently failed to pay their suppliers.
The county assemblies have also ground to a halt. A case in point is Bungoma.
We want the issue of spending bills to be taken seriously because it has a potential of negatively affecting business environment.
Treasury's move has been lauded by a section of governors, among them Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua and his Kirinyaga counterpart Anne Waiguru.
So I think the National Treasury needs to start taking counties very seriously. And according to the law, they're supposed to prioritize disbursement to the counties. That should be the first charge.
Eyes remain on Treasury for the next few days. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
So let's pick it up from where Ambassador Kuriatani, the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, has left it off with a promise, and he was appearing last week with a promise of disbursing funds for the month of March and April. Governor Ongwae, being the Vice Chair of COG, has this happened? Have the counties received any disbursements from when Ambassador Kuriatani appeared before that Senate committee to now as we're having this conversation?
Thank you very much, Akisa, and the entire KTN fraternity, KTN News fraternity, my colleague and my brother Rugo. Thank you very much. When you called me to appear here today, I said that I must come because this is an extremely important issue. No, in very simple terms, counties have not received, even though I think there is an indication that these resources probably may be released tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. But we are talking here about resources for March and April. That means that all the counties will actually remain with the resources for May and June. I'll give you an example. For Kisii County, that would translate to almost about 1.8 billion shillings that may not be released if we don't get May. So that is the state that we are in at the moment. How many days have we got to the end of the financial year? I think working days, probably about less than 10 days to the end of the financial year. So even in the broader context of the utilization of those resources, even in the broader context of the arranging the payments so that the resources are utilized before the end of the financial year, I think we have a serious problem here. You also need to be aware, Kisa, that the resources to national ministries are actually given on a monthly basis without fail, yours faithfully. So my colleague, if he wants, he can pick up from there.
But before that, if then the Treasury keeps its word and makes disbursements for the months of March and April, and I remember the earlier threat by governors is that they want the entire amount of 102 billion to be disbursed. So if they make the effort and disburse for the months of April and March, are we going to hive off the intention to shut down counties?
I think the intention wasn't negative, Akisa. It shouldn't be looked at negatively. I think what the counties were saying is that they can't just simply operate. I'll give you an example. Most of us pay salaries through bank loans. And these bank loans come with certain conditions which is not right for us. Then secondly, we did not say that on the issue of June, and I think my colleague will support me on this and all the other governors, we are cognizant of the fact that we are in hard times. We are aware about the times that we are living in. We are aware about the revenue collection problems that we have as a nation. What we had requested Treasury, and we held a meeting with the Treasury, is that they should at least give us May. If they gave us May, then we would be able to pay the debt, most of the debts that are outstanding. At least by the start of the new financial year, we would have cleared quite a number of debts.
Governor Nderitu, I'd want you to come in at this point. What is the situation like for Laikipia?
Well, it's a similar situation for all counties. That counties have not received monies, totaling just over 1 or 3 billion. May, April, June, and the circumstances, as Governor Ongwae has explained, that we are in a terrible cash crunch. Even basic things like payment of salaries on time, and where we've made arrangements with financial institutions, then being able to meet our obligations on time. I think, though, we should focus on what the solutions are. And we, as a Council of Governors, have presented to the Treasury, two solutions. Firstly, many economists and many of us had attempted to persuade the Treasury to do a big stimulus, because if the issue of underperformance on the revenue side is the result of depressed economic activity, therefore, even looking into the next financial year, if Treasury is not persuaded to do something in terms of adding or in terms of stimulating the economy, then we will have that same problem recurring throughout the financial year. In addition, we had suggested to the Treasury to approach the central bank for a standby facility, perhaps equivalent to 2 months of disbursements to counties, which would be about 52 billion shillings. The reason we suggested that is so that the minister has some cushion and ability to keep the economy going. Now, what is happening, and he himself, in the clip that you played, the minister himself admits that failure to disburse to counties has a constraining effect on the economy. Because when we ourselves are not able to pay our suppliers, it has a knock-on effect that further slows down the economy. So really, we had expected, and I know that some of his technocrats are persuaded, some are not, but we would have hoped that the whole team gets persuaded and we all do the correct thing, which is to look for every possible way to stimulate the economy. Back to you.
So let me just ask you, so you presented these solutions. How are they received by the National Treasury, if there was any engagement around it?
As I said, you see, of course, the Treasury, the CS relies on a team of technocrats. Half of them, I would say, are convinced. 1 or 2 key ones are not really convinced that this is the way to go, as the result of which we've not made meaningful progress on this proposal. But I remain hopeful that the minister and his senior team can be persuaded to do what most economists can see is the obvious thing to be done. And that is, we have to stimulate the economy. In addition, get a facility that allows him to disburse in a timely fashion so that we stop further slowing down the economy by lack of disbursements.
Right. Let me bring in Dr. Rugo at this point. What are your thoughts on those proposals? Stimulate the economy, have a standby facility for the counties. Will this holistically sort out this perennial problem of a cash crunch resulting from a failure to disburse money to these devolved units?
Thank you so much, Akisa. It's a pleasure to join us, and it's good to hear the perspectives of the governors. I think it's important for us to appreciate, as Governor Ongwae has said, both at county level and at national level, we've basically been running on overdraft in terms of being able to manage the cash flow in that state. And because the T-bills, the treasury bills and treasury bonds are not being purchased at the rate at which they are purchased, because that's what the national treasury seems to depend on. And the reason for that is because already what we call the ordinary revenue is already squeezed out big time by costs towards debt payment, towards pensions, and towards constitutional offices. And that has meant that there's always a delay in sending money. But what is interesting to observe is that the delay is not equitable. the delay to counties is always higher than the delay to MDAs. In that sense, I think, and even the data shows that. So I think the solution, as the governor is saying, having a mechanism that basically can assure that, because a lot of services, healthcare, agriculture services, trade services are dependent. Citizens depend on counties, and therefore any delay on counties has a very huge implication, because this is across country. This is across 47 units here. So I think because we are already running on a debt system in a sense, then having a standby facility would be, but it is also just a short-term measure because that only helps to address certain gaps. You cannot have a standby facility for 3-4 months. You can only have it maybe for a month or two because of the interest rates that come with it. After that, then the biggest solution is a question of why is it that, first of all, we cannot reorganize how we do the national expenditure, the national interest expenditure, so that then you have more and more resources with time. And of course, we can also discuss about the question of own resource revenue and the like.
Great. Thank you. I want us to quickly take a short break. Remember, we are asking if you're supporting the governor's calls to shut down counties over failure by the national government or national treasury to disburse funds to the counties. Do you support governors in their call to shut down operations in counties due to lack of funds? Hashtag the front row at Akisa Wandera at KTN News KE. Speaking to Governor James Ongwae, Governor Nderitu Mureithi, and Dr. Abraham Rugo from the International Budget Partnerships. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more.